Hello, and welcome to another teaching from TorahFamily.org. We are a family-based ministry that believes the whole Bible stands forever, that all of it is based in the Torah, and all of it promotes the Torah. Please visit us at TorahFamily.org for more teachings like this one. We hope this teaching helps you learn and grow in the faith. Men of Yahweh, Chapter 6, Mighty Men. Have you ever read 2 Samuel chapter 23? I encourage you to make the time to read that chapter. You will be amazed at what you read. This chapter is all about David's mighty men. There were 37 in all. To give you an example of these mighty men, let's read about one of them. 2 Samuel 23, verse 8. These are the names of David's mighty men. Josheb-Basshebeth, a Tekemonite, was chief of the three. He raised his spear against 800 men, whom he killed in one encounter. Wow. I mean, wow. Could you imagine that? I mean, really, think about that for just a second. One man taking on 800 men. And not just taking them on, but defeating them. We're not talking about killing 800 men in his lifetime. Oh no, we're talking about killing 800 men in one battle. I mean, really? Now we see why 2 Samuel 23:8 calls them David's mighty men. These guys weren't your average soldiers. They were super soldiers. Seriously. The question is, where did these guys come from? Well, I think I actually have the answer to that. When David started off, things weren't going so well for him. I mean, let's face it, when the king wants you dead, well, it's not good. However, even though the king may have started out right before Yahweh, we know he didn't stay right before him. Pride set in, and eventually Yahweh rejected Saul. And in comes David to the storyline. He came out from under Saul's rule. He grew in popularity rather quickly, so much so that the faults of Saul began coming to light to others. It was at this time that David had to flee, even though he was anointed as the next king. It was during this time that Yahweh started bringing men to David. Now, our text about David's mighty men was in 2 Samuel. Yet, it was one book earlier that we read about these men who were coming to David when he was fleeing the king. Let's read about these men who come to David's side when he was fleeing the king. 1 Samuel chapter 22. All those who were in distress, or in debt, or discontented, gathered around him, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. They were in distress, or in debt, or discontented. I can't help but chuckle at what had to be going through David's mind. He had to pray something like, "You know, Yahweh, with you making me the next king, is this really the army you want me to have?" We have no idea what David was thinking. However, all indications show that David's mighty men actually came from these men who gathered around him, those who were in distress, or in debt, or discontented. It says about 400 men gathered around him. So, close to 10%, 37, became David's mighty men. Men who were down and out, if you will, did a complete 180-degree turn and became warriors of renown. Men who did awesome feats for Yahweh. But here's the thing. These men didn't become mighty men overnight. In fact, in 1 Samuel 23, we see fear in them. 1 Samuel 23, verse 1. When David was told, "Look, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah, and are looting the threshing floors," he inquired of Yahweh, saying, Shall I go and attack these Philistines?" Yahweh answered him, "Go, attack the Philistines, and save Keilah." But David's men said to him, "Here in Judah we are afraid. How much more if we go to Keilah against the Philistine forces?" Once again, David inquired of Yahweh, and Yahweh answered him, "Go down to Keilah, for I am going to give the Philistines into your hand." So David and his men went to Keilah, fought the Philistines, and carried off their livestock. He inflicted heavy losses on the Philistines and saved the people of Keilah. You can't help but wonder if it was actually in this very battle that these men saw the hand of Yahweh working in them, training them, building them up to be the awesome warriors they were to become. One could say they became what they did because they were under the leadership of David. And I would wholeheartedly agree. The anointing that David had as king no doubt played a major role in their lives. Now, the question I have is this: who are we influencing? How are we influencing them? Or are we being influenced? How are we being influenced? And please know, it's okay to be one who is being influenced. That is, if you're being influenced for the good. But one thing is for sure. Here is what I have come to conclude in my life so far, no matter where our walk is in Yahweh. 1. We are always being influenced for the positive or the negative. And 2. We are always influencing for the positive or the negative. The positive or the negative is dependent on our willingness to be obedient or not. We see with these men that they saw David's example in going to Yahweh for instructions and then trusting Yahweh in what he said. So we have to ask ourselves, who are we looking to for our example? Who are we allowing in our lives to influence us? We need friends that will strengthen our walk with Yahweh, that will challenge us to live closer to Yahweh, that will encourage us in that challenge. We don't need friends that will bring compromise to our life, to compromise what we know Yahweh is telling us in our heart. If we are to become mighty men for Yahweh, compromise has to be out the door. In fact, I will tell you right now, compromise will always be the last enemy to defeat before we can become that mighty man of Yahweh. The funny thing is, we all know that. We do. Yet, unless we confront and eliminate that compromise in our life, nothing will change. The standards we live by are greatly influenced by those we let be around us. Compromise is contagious. Always has been, always will be. Yet, at the same time, when we choose to walk with those who remove compromise from their life, we grow in that same desire. The difference is us choosing to walk with them and not getting them to walk with us. See the difference? Again, the difference is choosing to walk with them in no compromise instead of getting them to walk with us while in compromise. David's mighty men chose to walk with David. They didn't try to get David to follow them. Because of that, they became great and did awesome things for Yahweh. Awesome things. We all need people in our lives who will open our eyes to Yahweh's standards in everyday living. David himself was a mighty warrior, so it should be no surprise that those around him became mighty warriors as well. David's mighty men chose to be influenced by David. You are being influenced whether you like it or not. The question is, who are you letting influence you? It's either to be more like our Heavenly Father or less like our Heavenly Father. Do you want to become a mighty man of Yahweh? It all starts with who you are allowing to influence your life. We hope you've enjoyed this teaching. Now, it's up to you to be a Berean and study it for yourself. That's the only way to grow. Until next time, Shalom.